Hi, everyone. We're live. Welcome again to our monthly series. If you're turning in for the first time, we are here on a regular basis to discuss a variety of topics ranging from Agile to DevOps and kind of everything in between. So the point of live is to bring you all along in the conversation. I saw a lot of familiar faces that might have attended last time, signed up on our LinkedIn event, so welcome back. My name is Kelly. I'm a product marketer on the Atlassian team, and today we are going to unpack the power of research and insights with Leisa Reichelt, head of research and insights at Atlassian, and Christian Stovall, director of customer and user experience research at ALSAC St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. If you aren't familiar with ALSAC, they're the fundraising and awareness organization for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. They are a $2 billion nonprofit, which makes them the largest children's healthcare charity in the world. So you might be asking yourself, what does a tech company like Atlassian have in common with a nonprofit like St. Jude? Well, aside from being billion-dollar organizations, they're laser focused on their customers. So if you're tuning in for the first time and you have any interaction with customers whatsoever, there's probably some really great takeaways that you can get from Leisa and Christian today. So over the next 45 minutes, we're going to take some time to learn a little bit about Atlassian and ALSAC St. Jude, how research happens across the organization, and specifically in the research and insights team. We'll be getting into some best practices, things you might want to start doing or keep doing, and also some things you might want to avoid, some red flags that you might want to start paying attention to, or maybe some things that you might even want to stop doing. So housekeeping again, this is live, we're being recorded. The recording will stay in the Atlassian feed on LinkedIn. And if you're tuning in from Twitter via Jira's handle, hi, it'll also be in the feed as well. We will be recording this session and it'll be available for a recap on www.atlassian.com/agile, and we'll put some recap notes in the Atlassian community as well. So please ask questions as we're going along. We will stop and answer them the best that we can. Again, we want to make sure this is engaging for you all. So the ability to turn customer research into actionable insights is really a competitive advantage for every business. And that's what we're here to talk about today, how this happens in real life. It probably impacts a lot of you every single day, whether it's your job or you research part-time or rely on teams like Leisa's or Christian's as a part of your job. So I'm going to introduce Leisa and Christian really quickly, and then we'll get into it. So for those of you tuning in that do not know Leisa, again, head of research and insights at Atlassian. She is coming up on, at least I believe, 4 years at Atlassian come August this year. So before Atlassian, she spent time working with the government and digital services in both Australia and the UK. She was responsible for building research capabilities within government and digital teams. Before that, she was consulting with a mix of London tech startup brands like The Economist, BBC, Virgin Atlantic, and many more. I'm sure you all have heard of those. And Christian is a user experience professional. He has over 20 years experience in product research and design. Before joining ALSAC St. Jude, he was the director of UX at Attic Media, which is an award-winning digital agency based out of London. He's also the co-founder and director of UX for Monetaire, which is a New York-based enterprise financial planning company. So I've actually had the unique pleasure of working both with Leisa's team at Atlassian and my prior role at ALSAC St. Jude with Christian and his team. So it's really cool to have both of them together today. So let's kick it off. Leisa and Christian, I will point to one of you. I want you to tell us a little bit about how research happens at your organization, and then how research happens in your team, the function of your role, the scope of your teams and your roles, and share as much as you'd like. Leisa, I'll go ahead and kick it off with you.
Thanks, Kelly, and thanks everyone for being here. How does research happen at Atlassian? I think that there are two kind of main ways of thinking about it. It's research that happens inside the research team, and then there's the research that happens all through the rest of the business as well. So research is an activity that's done by many different people in Atlassian. Our designers do it, our product managers do it, our product marketing managers do it, and a bunch of other people as well, always out there trying to understand what our customers need and how we can help them better, and what the opportunities are to make sure that the products that we're delivering are giving like a really great experience and solving problems for people as well. So part of our role in the research team is to do maybe some of the more kind of complex, demanding, robust research that needs to be done. And then also supporting all of the research that's happening elsewhere out in the organization as well. So we do a lot of training, we provide a lot of infrastructure and tooling for that as well. And it's a mixture of product research, so understanding what the new opportunities are, as well as concept evaluation, usability testing, trying to make sure that things are working really well. And then we also do a lot of research work with our brand and marketing teams. And we do a research work with our people team as well, so understanding our internal customers and trying to help make life at Atlassian more effective and even more amazing as well. So a whole range of different kinds of work, qualitative work and quantitative work. So a whole bunch of different skill sets in the team.
Wonderful. Christian, do you want to give us a little overview of how things happen at ALSAC St. Jude?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. Before I jump into that, though, I wanted to use this opportunity to thank you all for having us on here. ALSAC St. Jude is grateful for, I'm not sure people understand how the philanthropic commitment that Atlassian has, but we are benefit from that. And I appreciate this opportunity to talk about this subject that I'm very excited about, very passionate about, but also gives me an opportunity to personally thank you both and your organization for what you do to help the kids of St. Jude and to help us be a more effective fundraising organization. So it sounds like our two organizations are not that different in terms of how we go about doing applied research. So our job is to solve practical business problems, and we do that through our best effort to understand the attitudes and the behaviors of the people that do business with us. And in terms of who's doing research, I just jotted down that's how it happens. It happens all the time, and it happens everywhere. So everyone is trying to understand our customers and what we can do for them, what they need, if we're on the right track, if they can use the products and services that we've designed and delivered, and ways that we can improve. We have formal research teams. So those are people whose full-time day job is to do research. We have about 40 people in the organization, and they range. It sounds similarly to the way that things are orchestrated at Atlassian. We're a 60-year-old organization, so we've had time to develop these teams. We have a marketing research team. We have our customer and user experience research team. We have a center of excellence in analytics. We have prospect research, executive research, data science. So a lot of people that are formally trained in research practice and bring that to bear every day. And then, like Leisa said, we have people, we're not the only ones that are interested in learning as much as we can about our customers and how to serve them. That's happening everywhere across the organization. And that's really what we're striving to improve as an organization, to see that scale. And by scale, I mean helping people be more effective in the research that they're already doing day to day. So our team, to borrow a couple terms from Atlassian. So we've got capital R researchers on our team, and their job is to help these people who do research, these PWDRs that are around the company, at any point that they need, whether it's understanding the users and trying to create a more sort of foundational understanding of this really evergreen insights that we can use for months or years at a time, or something much more targeted and tactical, like we've developed a new product or service, and we want to make sure that people can accomplish these really key tasks. And it's really everywhere. I think people are starting to, more and more people understand that it's cost effective, and it can be very practical in terms of solving business problems to involve your users more early and more often. So that's how we try to do things at ALSAC.
Great. So Christian, you've been in your role going on 3 years now. Leisa, you're right at that 4-year mark. You guys have probably been in your role about the same time. How has the focus of your team, or just research in general, evolved over time? What are some challenges your teams face and some opportunities that you or your teams look forward to tackling for your customers, your product teams, your marketing teams in the future?
Shall I jump in?
Yeah.
Please.
So I think if I look back over the last kind of three and a half years, it hasn't quite been 4 years yet. It's been a a bunch of different things. There's been some really sort of simple operational things that we have to get right in order for us to sort of run a good research process. And a lot of that is actually making best friends with our team in legal to make sure that the personal data that we're handling as a research team is being kind of looked after properly. And also to make sure that we can do a really good job of recruiting the right people in to participate in research. It can be really easy to just like get the people who are most keen to come talk to you, or the people that you know, people who are in your network, as a kind of like a good early way to start getting participants in for research, and definitely better than nothing. But if you want to get better and better at it, then being able to specifically get, you know, the particular people that you need to answer, you know, questions for you in research is really important, and try to make that as efficient as possible. And a lot of the time that's going to be people who wouldn't necessarily be looking to engage with you. So people who are maybe your detractors or less engaged people are really, really important people to talk to in research, but kind of some of the more difficult ones to get involved. So we've done a lot of work investing in that research recruitment process, making sure that it's privacy compliant and that it's a sort of ethical process, and also that it helps us get the right people, you know, in the research sessions to make sure that we're getting that really good full sense of all of the different views that we need to be taking into account, not just the ones that are easy to bring in for research. So that's been a really important one. I think there's been a lot of work that we've done too around sort of foundational work. Again, it's really, Atlassian's a really kind of get shit done kind of place, right? Where it's like, we've got a problem, let's get after the solution, let's try and get it out and into our customers' hands as quickly as possible. And we definitely want to keep doing that. But there's some really important foundational work that we often need to do that gives us a bigger picture of what our customer needs are and who our customer base is as well. So understanding, you know, the full set of our kind of customer archetype, understanding the things that are really important to them, not necessarily through the lens of our products. So we've done a lot of work understanding top tasks for different sets of customers, right? So we've done a lot of work understanding, you know, what are the most important tasks that people in agile teams are trying to get done. Not looking at it through just a Jira or a Confluence or a Bitbucket lens, but looking at it just purely through that really, you know, team-centric and user-centric lens. So building that sort of foundational knowledge then that helps all of the teams, like a lot of teams around Atlassian can benefit and pull from that, and it can form a foundation upon which both strategic and kind of more tactical work is done as well. So finding the time and space for that when there's so much else to do, I think has been really challenging. But getting that work done and doing a really good, solid job of it has been really important work. Similarly, I think another important thing that we've done has been to make sure that we're measuring the right things. So we've moved away a little bit from our initial reliance that we had a while back on just an NPS number, and that's pretty much it. We now have a much more robust set of customer experience metrics that we've been following for a couple of years now that give us a really good insight into the quality of experiences that different customers of different products at different times are having, and the impact of the work that we're doing on that customer experience as well.
That's great. I know that Christian has a lot to talk about. You talked about the best practice with participant research, which is great. How you measure, which is great. And we'll get into that a little bit more. Christian, before we get over to you to talk about some of those same things, there's a question for you. So we'd love to hear a little bit more from you about how you use Atlassian products to support research. Obviously, you work at a nonprofit. So can you just share a little bit from a tool standpoint, how you use, I know that you all use Jira and Confluence as far as how you intake work, prioritize work, and work that research process from sort of your backlog to done along with your customers.
Yeah, for sure. I think I can answer, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Yu's question, as well as the one that you had in the same answer. So fundamentally, Atlassian has a very serious commitment to nonprofit organizations. So anybody can benefit like we do. We get access to their entire tech stack, and we bring that to bear in our day-to-day operations. So just that in of itself gives us an immediate leg up and gives us access to these really best-in-class tools for collaboration and workflow management. The tools that we use specifically are Confluence and Jira, and those were part of. So I entered into this role as the director of research into a well-established customer experience program that was put in place and is currently led by our Chief Customer Officer, Martin Hain. He came over from United and brought United Airlines, and his expectations. He demands the same level of rigor of our customer experience work as we do for our financial accounting. And so he very much wants our staffing and processes and tools to be reliable and rigorous, and to have a really good foundation for research competency. And so having that demand and drive from our executive leadership, and also having these great tools from Atlassian, when I joined, the way that we use these tools was we agreed very first and foremost that we needed to have a good shared pool of knowledge, and that Confluence was the best place to do that. So that became what we called our research wiki. So there was work going on to understand our supporters before I joined, but it was, I think plagued is a strong word. I think it was hamstrung maybe by some of the challenges that teams have always had with how best to communicate effectively and get work done. Information was siloed and fragmented, and people were passing around documents, and meetings were not about really anything strategic and getting work done. It was often status updates, and people were always wondering if they had the most recent PowerPoint, and there's just all this mayhem ensues. What we agreed as a team was that we would make a sort of draw a line in the sand and say everything we do going forward needs to be on Confluence. But on Confluence, it never happened. And then we look back at the things that we've done in the past year to 3 years and decide, okay, well, what did we have on our shared drives or in our email folders or on our thumb drives or wherever? What of that needs to go into Confluence, and what can we realistically let go? So once we established that research wiki, then we started to see where the gaps were, and started to fill those in, starting mostly with templates and tools. So a lot of the things that we try to do in terms of what we've been trying to invest in to sort of scale up our practice is to democratize the work of research while still trying to maintain the validity that you want. You want to have confidence in the way that you measure and the way that you analyze and the way that you report. And so we set out to provide templates and guides and processes and tools that were publicly available for everyone, so that if people were going to be going out and talking to their users anyway, well, how can we help them get a leg up on how to write a good interview guide, or how to make sense of that data when they come back, or just the idea that you might want to be explicit about your research goals before you go out and send a survey to 50,000 people, those sorts of things. And so Confluence really helped us be able to get, like I said, that shared pool of knowledge. It's a terrifically flexible platform for team collaboration. And then the second part of how Atlassian helps us is that we are very avid users of Jira, and Jira and Confluence work beautifully together. So all of our team's work, which before I joined was not entirely transparent. It wasn't particularly easy to find out who was working on what or how much was going on. We've now transitioned to where we have work in progress limits. We're calculating cycle and lead time. We know when things are stuck so that we can escalate them into our risk reviews. And all these things are updated in real time from Jira into Confluence. So for the folks that we support, our leadership and our internal audiences, they can see updates in real time on Confluence. That most of those folks are not super technical, so they're not really spending a lot of time in Jira. They don't need to. They see all the things in real time in Confluence on these pages. So it's a really great package deal for us, and it results in a lot less, just a lot more clarity of focus, and the conversations that we have are more strategic, and we're talking more about how to get work done, less about what's working and what's not working. So we adore it, and it's not something that's just for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. This is really any nonprofit that's interested can take advantage of Atlassian's generosity.
Great, thank you. So we have a question. I'm going to try to loop this in with some things that we talked about. So the question is, it seems like it's a huge organizational change management project as well as process changes. How did you motivate employees to adopt new processes and new things along the way? So you both mentioned about participant recruitment, democratizing, the research that you have. all of those things, as organizations get more and more research and more people, those things can be hard to scale. So it involves a lot of people, right? So Leisa, I'm in marketing, as more and more work gets done, like I would like to be able to have access to this information. I want to make sure it can help me make decisions. So from your all standpoint, how does this, as changes are happening or new things are rolling out from your team standpoint, how do you not only manage those new things, but also the change management that goes with that and all the different departments and areas that those changes impact?
That is an excellent question. I know it's a super hard job. And I think, so I'm going to speak a little bit less to the process changes that Christian's talking about, because I'm sure he'll be able to cover that really well. I think ours is really almost like a philosophical change in a way. And there's two groups that are involved here. I think there are the researchers in the research team, and then there are the people who are either researchers, people who do research, who are not in the research team, or kind of consumers of research in the rest of the organization. I think for our researchers, the change that we brought about has been a welcome change, because what we're trying to do is empower them to do their job really well and give them all of the tools and the time and the processes to be able to do work that they can feel really proud of. So it's a pretty easy change from that side of things. In terms of the rest of the organization, I think that a lot of the time what we have had to do is try to get people to almost like slow down a little bit to go faster, and get people out of the habit of just thinking that whatever it is that you can do the fastest that involves customers is good enough, right? Let's just do that and move on. We've been wanting to really try to raise people's kind of quality bar around making sure and checking that they've got the right people involved in the research, and that they're taking time to do some analysis of that research to make sure that they're not just taking the last two kind of bullet points of what they heard in the most recent interview that resonated with them the most, but they're actually really working through all the data that they've got and feeling confident that what they're saying that they've learned is really evidenced in the data as well. And doing some of the work that I mentioned before, and that's a really foundational understanding. Like at the time that you're doing that, people are like, well, how's this going to help me right now? I've got 1,000,001 problems right now. How's this going to help me right now? So that's been where the real challenge has been. And in all honesty, a lot of what you need to do is kind of just like hold your breath, trust yourself, go through the process, and believe that the results and the impact will speak for itself. So for us, it's been like there was a period of time where I'm going to say we probably weren't the most popular team in Atlassian, because we were taking some stuff away in order to put some better stuff in place. And I think over time, as people have started to see what a different level of quality can look like, and as we've tried to sort of give different processes and ways of working and different tool sets to help make it easier to do a higher level quality of work, that people have been really keen to adopt more and more of it and to get more involved in that way of working as well. So we've seen really quite a large shift. It has been painful at times, but I think ultimately it is worthwhile. And you know, most people at Atlassian, I think most people in most organizations, they want to do the right thing. They want to do work that they can be really proud of. They want to make good decisions. And so doing the research work well is a really key part of that. But it certainly can be painful when you're suggesting that you have to maybe slow things down a little bit, or you know, that maybe in some cases we're like, actually you want to talk to fewer people. It's not actually about, you know, how many people can you talk to. It's like the quality of conversations that you have with a few people. But generally speaking, once people have been through the experience themselves, they have a kind of an aha moment, like, oh, right, I get it. I see why we're doing this. I see how it's different. All right, let's do more of this.
I can echo that sentiment. I think that I was going to say for us, we benefit by our Rick Shadiak, our chief executive officer. He has this quote that we like to say that he said it, and we got very excited when we heard it. He said that you know, we have the opportunity to learn as an organization by listening to our supporters, and so we've got our CEO that's out there talking about the business value of listening to supporters. And then we've got our chief customer officer, who obviously is investing in, of trying to build a best-in-class customer experience department, which includes customer user research. So we have that top alignment in our executive leadership team, which is, not insignificant. It's not insignificant when it comes to change management. If you see that type of alignment and you see the behaviors in your executive leadership team, that tends to work its way down. But even down at the lower levels, what Leisa refers to, once they've been there, we are big advocates of bringing people along in the research process and to breaking down the research into smaller chunks, not just because it's practical for, go, no-go decisions, because sometimes you can abandon the work and move on, or you can invest more into it, but also because it's a really great learning opportunity for folks that, that in some cases are already doing this work or trying very hard to do it well. There's definitely an appetite for it. But their experience with research on the whole is often, I talk to these people who sometimes have lab coats on and they go off into their little rooms and they do their research and they bring me back this like great reveal of this terrific research paper. And sometimes it takes 3 months, sometimes it takes 6 months. And they don't see the people that we work for, the business teams that we support, they don't see themselves in the work and they don't understand the process to product. And they don't really, often get to appreciate the real human side of this, that we're talking about actual human beings using the products and services that we build, that they have lives, that they're complex, that not everything is predictable or generalizable, that, you need some the anthropologist on our team is always encouraging us to not undervalue the thick descriptions of or deep understandings of your customers, not just the predictability of them. And so we try to bring them along in the entire process, not just, how to do an interview, but like, hey, this is how you're going to work with us. So you're going to meet with us and we're going to have a really short intake meeting to talk about what your business goals are. And then we're going to go back and we're going to use Confluence to keep you up to date on, how we prioritize the work relative to other things that we're doing. We're going to talk about business value and what we know or don't know if we're qualified to do this work, et cetera. So there's total transparency into the way that we get work actually onto our work board. And then when we get into research design, which is a concept that most people that we've worked with, they're more familiar with it now than they were when we started, but that was an entirely new concept, this idea that you would talk about who you're going to talk to first and how you're going to get a hold of them and how you're going to collect information from them and what you're going to do with it when you get that. That's very important to academics or people with research backgrounds. That's not revolutionary thinking, but for business folks, that seems kind of unusual. And so we bring folks through the research design process. We bring them along for data collection. So are we talking about writing a survey? Are we talking about doing interviews as well? Are we going out into the field? Before the pandemic happened, that was a common activity of ours, was to take teams out into the field that were, cross-functional. We have engineers and UX designers and product owners, and we would take them in the field and do some professional hanging out, we call it, and just watch these folks use our technology. And those are the real sort of, one, to show them that it's not rocket science, but also to show them that that there is much more to it than just sending out a survey or doing usability tests, and like Leisa says, the quality of your participants is critical. And in terms of the things that we're investing going forward, that's probably going to be the single greatest barrier to our really scaling our research work, because it's not trivial to get people in the study, how you access them. That is the most difficult thing. And so that's why we're trying very hard to get better at doing that and provide the access to those audiences of people, to the business teams that can benefit from those insights from them.
Awesome. So we have a question about agile ways of working. It's really general, which is awesome. Christian, I will say that if you would like to take this, I know you just stopped talking, but just talk about the way in which your team intakes and prioritizes work. I mean, I definitely think you guys took more of a lean approach, which I think is great, and moved away from, like you said, doing this research in advance and turning around and handing something over to your internal customers, like how you went about changing the way that your team works and the tools that you use. In a couple minutes, then we'll get back and just talk about best practice a little bit more, and then some things that people out there or companies should avoid or maybe stop doing as far as research is concerned.
Sure. Yeah. So the word agile has got a lot of baggage. And I'm sure I'm going to confuse or upset some of the people that are on this call when I try to unpack it. My background is in working with software development teams. I brought Jira into this research team. So for me, I have a very specific, like I used to work in a pair programming environment. I've done client server development and then, on to, so anyway, all that to say, like my background is very technical and I'm thinking about delivering working software to users and I'm thinking about things in that way. But for our teams, it's this balance as it's always been since the, beloved or maligned manifesto was written about, like you want certain things, but you need other things as well. And so our team was very good. What I did basically was an assessment when I joined the team about what were some of the challenges that they felt in terms of the benefits they wanted to deliver to the business, and it became pretty clear to me that there was a heavy reliance on like super comprehensive documentation. Your professional researchers are coming out of their, with advanced degrees, being taught to write, very, very serious research papers that lead with all sorts of things, none of which are the highlights or insights from research, right? And that's typically what your business owners want to see right away. So we do comprehensive documentation, but we want working research. We want the insights to be accessible to the team, usable to the team quickly. Contract negotiation, another tenet that you don't want to invest too much in. We do need to have a working agreement with these teams. We do need to have an understanding of what it is that we're trying to do, but we want to collaborate with them more so. So we definitely tried to bring them along. Whereas before, like I said, research was kind of cloistered off into the organization. You would ask for something, and then a few months later, what you needed came back, often much longer than you much later than you needed it. The chunking the work was a big deal too. So instead of these great reveals of these research insights several months down the road, we very much set up a plan, but would have the plan have very specific milestones around steps in the research so that we are being able to respond to change depending on a number of things, not the least of which has been a pandemic recently. So I think I took some of the things that I saw that were that had hamstrung some of the software teams, that agile and tools and methods. And like you said, we are probably a little bit of a agile. We steal liberally from agile and lean to build our teams and our processes. But it's ultimately for the benefit of the people that we do the business for, do the research work for. So if that answers that question.
Yeah. Leisa, I know that you've been working in product a long time, and now at Atlassian as well, and just in general, and you have a lot of feelings on this. We talked about that a little bit yesterday. So would you like to go into a little bit about your opinion with Agile and how you support product teams and help them make better decisions?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's funny because, it certainly has been a bit of a vexed relationship at times between people who are like researchers and Agile and trying to work out how we all fit together. And certainly in our team, we have different kinds of researchers working in different kinds of ways. We have researchers who are working on measurement tracking studies or kind of big discovery pieces that aren't necessarily linked directly into product teams. They're sort of doing work that's more generally consumable across multiple teams. But we also have a whole bunch of researchers who are what we call product researchers. So they're pretty much embedded in with product teams working in a cross-functional way. Agile represents a huge opportunity, I think, for bringing a great human-centered iterative practice to how we do product development. So I think we really try to embrace it as an opportunity as much as we can to work cross-functionally. So to try to avoid like the throwing of the work over the fence from one discipline to another discipline as much as possible, and to do what Christian was talking about before, bring people along on that journey and get people in really close to the research. So trying to make sure that we're using the agile cycles to build an iterative cycle to be able to get work in front of our customers frequently and to learn from that and to take that learning back into the product and improve the product in an iterative way. Agile gives us a great framework for doing that. I think the trick is that we need to make sure that it's sustainable. and that we're not just trying to do like a standard full usability study in a sprint, right? Because you can burn yourself and your teams out incredibly quickly that way. So the trick really, I think, is to make sure that you've right-sized the work that you're doing so that it's manageable in the sprints that you're working to, and then you run a completely open house. And I think that's the thing that I would reiterate the most from what Christian's talking about. It's like, I really, really encourage our researchers to run a really open practice and to help people understand what researchers do and all of the hidden secret work, and really get away from that ta-da moment, because there really can be a lot of misunderstanding around the amount of planning that's involved to do really good research, the amount of analysis that's involved at the other end to make sure that you can feel really confident in what you're saying you've learned from the research. It's possible to scale that down into sort of agile chunks, and that can work really well. And giving people that opportunity to come along and observe all of that really helps them appreciate what it is that researchers do, and helps them build that capability themselves if that's something that they're interested in as well.
Great. So we have covered a lot of topics. We only have about 7 minutes left. So I think we mostly covered a ton of best practices and things that you all are doing and working towards. I know areas that we have talked about in the past are participant research, metrics and measurements that you use for customer experience, customer satisfaction, product usage, things like that. So want to make sure that we can cover those and make sure we're giving people some kind of red flags and things they could potentially avoid. So Leisa or Christian, if there's anything off the top of your head that we mentioned that you're really passionate about, like, can we name a best practice and then like a couple of warning signs or things that you might want to avoid if you're seeing it within your organization or seeing it on your team, whether you're a team of 1 or 2 or 10, 20, 30, 40?
Yeah, I can certainly start. I think that, it depends on what level. We try to be really mindful of how, there are many, and everyone has these cognitive biases that can trip you up in your research. And so we try to be mindful of things like, there are, we tend to look for things that confirm what we're looking for. As an example, that's a very common thing that we see in the research that we do. That is when you get a positive response, like, oh, I think this is going to be terribly difficult. And then you show it to someone and it turns out it's terribly difficult. That may very well be true. It behooves you to make sure that you check and recheck in several different ways to make sure that what you're seeing is actually what in fact is happening. Some researchers refer to this as triangulation, or it's confirmation bias. That's a very common thing that we see. And that's definitely something I would encourage people to get familiar with, how cognitive biases can affect your judgment. And since we're talking about research, I mean, one of the things that we see a lot, and I don't know if Atlassian struggles with this, but there's a bias called social desirability, where people will, they tend to speak in ways that make them look good or don't make them look bad. And one of the things that we try very much to do is understand how we can better serve the supporters of our mission. But no one wants to tell a nonprofit children's research hospital that their fundraising app is garbage, or that their website is crap, or that they are not able to do business with us easily. And so that's an example of an opportunity where you can reframe your research questions, where we can say things like, if you could design this fundraising application for your mom, how would you do it differently, or your neighbor? So things like that. There's a whole bunch of them that I think that's a very important list of things just to be mindful of and get familiar with. And then I think more specifically with research, what I'd recommend very quickly is understand that you need to start with the goals of the research first and not with the methods. So we often have people say, I don't know what questions I need, but I need you to run a survey. That's not going to get you the answers that you're looking for. I can guarantee it. You also need to be really clear about your concepts and how you operationalize them. So when you talk about making things easy or delightful, I mean, those are common words to describe software. what do you mean exactly? How are you going to measure that precisely? It can be qualitative, it can be quantitative, it can be both. But being clear about what that is essential. And then I mentioned it before, triangulation. You need to make sure that you're verifying your findings through multiple sources of information, and that's going to increase the likelihood that your instrument and your insights and the reports that you give and the support that you provide your business partners is more likely valid than not. And I think that's an important thing for people to really be mindful of. That's the key. Validity is key.
That's great. Leisa, I was probably like a lot of people that are tuning in, have done a lot of reading of your work. And I know one thing you talked about is how teams balance research to validate and research to learn and discover. I don't want to lead you down that way, but I was rereading that article today and I thought it was absolutely fantastic. So if you'd like to share some things that you're super passionate about, best practices, things to avoid, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, Kelly, that's actually exactly what I was planning to talk about anyway. So I think it can be really tempting to lean on research primarily as a validation tool, which leaves you open to all of the biases that Christian's talking about there. And I think a really good test is to try to make sure that your research is primarily about learning. Like, this should be about helping your teams understand more and learn more, so that you can feel more confident in the decisions that you're making. Really, that's kind of our job, right? Is to help teams learn about their customers, attitudes, behaviors, all that kind of bizarre, so that they can more confidently make good decisions that are going to be great for their customers. And so the trick to that, I think, is to just be constantly asking why. If you've got a piece of research and you can't really clearly, richly, confidently answer why you're seeing what you're seeing, then there's a chance that you're not approaching it the right way, or that you haven't done enough, but often that you're not approaching it the right way, right? And surveys are great examples of this. It could be NPS surveys, it could be other surveys where, you know, they're really driven by like how much or how many. If like that can be useful to know, but if you can't understand why people are doing particular things or making particular choices, and that makes it more difficult for you to feel really confident in the decision that you're going to make as a team. We see this a lot with sort of the low-cost, high-speed usability testing as well, right? Like, surely it must be better to get 600 people from our panel to do these usability tasks, and then I'll be able to rely on it more, right? And they do it super quickly. We've got 600 videos that we'll never watch, so I just download the spreadsheet that says option A is better than option B, right? That's one way to approach it, right? But that is very unlikely then that your team's going to be able to speak clearly about why option A is performing really well and what's the problem with option B. Could be that option B is actually where you should go. It's just got one fatal flaw that you could easily fix, right? You could easily discover that, but just by giving close attention to less than half a dozen people going through option B. So, and by giving that richer attention to a smaller number of people, you will get the answer to the why, and you will take the learning as a team, and that learning sets you up really well for making good decisions moving forward. So I think that's kind of like the little rule of thumb, right? Is this going to help us understand why? Because if as a team we understand why something is happening, then we can feel much more confident in our decision right now. And that's going to help us make better decisions moving forward into the future as well. So this research becomes extra valuable.
Wonderful. So we have 2 minutes left, which I'm afraid might not be enough time to get into anything else. I will ask you both, I'm kind of putting you on the spot, so I apologize. Is there anything, so if people are out there and they are in product, if they are someone like me in marketing, if they are up and coming or just coming out of the degree program, wanting to get into research and insights, Leisa, aside from your wonderful writings, are there a book that someone has to read, an article that they should read, something that they can continue to kind of learn and gain more experience or get a new perspective?
Here's 2 I prepared. I really love these 2 books. They're really designed for people who are not researchers to really trying to understand. Let me try and get it into the Erica Lynn. Erica Hall and Think Like a Researcher, which is David Travis and Philip Hosted. Incredibly accessible and really, really targeted at helping you get that balance right between like what is commercially feasible, what can I do in my team, and what can I actually rely on, what's sensible research.
Yeah, Just Enough Research is a staple in our library. There are a few others I think are worth mentioning. You have to measure the how much and how many, the scales and numbers. That stuff is a part of the job. And I think that Jeff Sorrow, his book on quantifying user experience is exceptional. It walks through some very basic descriptive and predictive stats to help you understand, including sample size calculators, things like that. It's very accessible, so that's good as well. But Just Enough Research is outstanding. It's a terrific book. It's very practical. And because we're talking about applied research, we're not talking about pure research here. So it's very accessible, great read. And I think she has a second edition that's come out recently. I'm not sure, but it's outstanding.
This is the second edition. It's very
good.
Is
it? Oh, well, that's great.
Well, thank you both so much for your time. Truly appreciate it. This is always fantastic to hear you both talk and listen to your best practices and your experience in the real world. You both are amazing. To everyone that's tuning in, again, this will be recorded. If you have not signed up to the LinkedIn event, if you go do that, I will actually post a recap and you can come ask more questions in the community, and maybe we can get Christian and Leisa back in there, or I can funnel questions to them to keep the conversation going. And if you do want to learn more about ALSAC St. Jude, you could visit stjude.org and learn more about the organization. And Christian's actually going to be customer speaking at Atlassian Team, which is next week. So there's some people that ask questions more about, hey, how does an organization like ALSAC St. Jude use Jira and Confluence? He will tell you all about it. He's actually the Confluence admin and a whiz at Confluence and Jira. So you'll be able to learn more. You can still register for Team 2021. I think Ashley will put it up, but it's events.atlassian.com/team21. Someone can check me on that. But thank you all very much. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.